Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Anupama, Professor at Department of Economics, Punjabi University, Patiala. I am going to talk about the module Health and Urban Healthcare from Population, Urbanization and Poverty. So students, we are going to discuss about the availability, accessibility and the quality of health services in urban areas. This module aims to examine the conceptual framework of health services, factors limiting the access to health, health systems in developing countries, the urban health systems, quality of urban health services. The current trends in urbanization predict that by 2030, urban areas worldwide will house an additional 1.4 billion people. Nearly all of this growth will take place in the developing world. Urbanization in the developing world offers unparalleled promise and opportunity for eradicating extreme poverty, fostering innovation and creativity, and including greater number of citizens in increased growth and prosperity than ever before. But urbanization also entails a host of major development challenges as it leads to increase in slum population, mismatch between demand and supply of basic services like clean water, sanitation and health facilities. Actually, urban environments influence almost every aspect of human health and well-being. The fundamental of well-being is contingent on satisfactory healthcare, which is dependent on availability and affordability of quality medical services. Though we may believe that income of the community and health status are positively associated with each other, yet there may be the cases challenging this view as through providing adequate health services, the problem of ill affordability of health expenditure by the poor can be easily curbed. So, in this respect, first of all, we will discuss the conceptual framework of availability of health services. There can be multiple level of factors that affect health in the cities. Since the health issues are largely related with the size and density of populations and their living conditions, it is believed that the local governance, along with the national as well as global trends, along with prevailing social and physical environments, are the main factors shaping the health status of urban populations. The social and physical environments that define the urban context are shaped by municipal factors such as government and civil society, and national and global trends that shape the context in which local factors operate. Thus, the urban environment, in its broadest sense, that is, in terms of physical, social, economic, and political aspects, affects all strata of residents, either directly or indirectly. In order to consider all these factors and how they affect the health of urban populations, are shown in a conceptual framework by Gelly et al. This framework proposes mechanisms through which these factors may influence the conditions that are the primary determinants of the health of urban populations. This framework is presented in Figure 1. This framework shows the complexity of the relationship of urban health with number of factors. The major global and national trends, that is, the broader economic, political, and social movements, may influence the municipal determinants that shape the urban characteristics, that in turn have an influence on the health outcomes. The direction of the arrows in this framework is only suggestive of the possible relationships, and should not be considered to be exhaustive and definitive. We may also move from right to left, that is looking first at the urban health outcomes, next at the proximal risk factors, and then at various urban characteristics and so on. There are several interrelationships between the domains presented here, and these relationships can be multidirectional. The pictorial representation of the framework can also be turned in a dynamic framework by incorporating the changes over time. That is, in case of growing city population. And these are more important determinants of health. However, in each case, the interrelationship of various actors and their outcomes are influenced by the enduring structures, that is the economic systems, religion, government, culture, and geography, suggesting that the actions and effects of the health systems in urban areas differ in different situations, that is with different enduring structures. This framework shows that immigration, migration, suburbanization of urban areas affects the population densities and therefore a demand for urban health services. These factors also have important effect upon the resource mobilization capacity of the local governments, which further defines their capacity to provide health services and other safety nets. From the point of view of hugely populated developing countries, the municipal governments are most important factors as they are the direct providers of health services to the urban residents. They have the capacity to modify the urban, physical, and social environments. Government activities in many sectors affect health, including those in public education, public transportation, public welfare, housing, and employment. While these municipal services are strongly influenced by state and federal government policies, implementation often rests at the local level. Public transportation and local regulation of private transportation offers one example of how municipal services in non-health arenas can affect health. Generally, cities are associated with both positive and negative effects of public health. On the other hand, they offer various public health innovations, provide improved healthcare and services, and offer better information and health education. On the other hand, cities are common areas of deteriorated physical and social environments. Especially in rapidly urbanizing megacities of developing countries, the growing number of people living in slums and unhealthy environments is of rising concern. High levels of environmental pollution, high building densities, and the loss of social connections often have negative impacts on the health of urban residents. Let us discuss the effect of these factors on access to health services. First of all, let us discuss about poverty. Poverty reduces the capacity of the individuals to spend upon health when needed. Due to income deprivations, the poor do not seek for the available health services. Another important point is geographic location. For the persons living in slums and peri-urban areas, the inner city location of the health services also affects the accessibility, and this access is further constrained due to inadequate provisions of transport services. And another important aspect is weak governance. Weak government machinery as well as the weakening role of government in welfare activities in the neoliberal era has severely reduced the quantity as well as the standard of public health services, which has led to reduced accessibility of the health services for the poor. A weak failing or failed state is also characterized by low economic opportunities, lack of social protection, which further makes a poor vulnerable to ill health prone situations. Now, it is important to have an overview of health systems in developing countries. From the conceptual framework, we have observed that the global, national, and municipal factors greatly influence the availability of health services and their access for general public. The availability and quality of these services depends upon the capabilities of the main actors providing these services and the general public who is at the receiving end. Thus, the availability of human as well as physical services of the health systems varies according to the level of income. Therefore, here an attempt has been made to look at the health services in developed as well as the developing economies. This can be observed from figure 2. The figure shows that the availability of doctors, nurses, and other paramedical staff, and also the number of hospital beds per thousand of population is higher in high-income countries as compared to low-income countries, and this availability increases as we go up the income ladder. Actually, in low-income countries, since the income levels of majority of the population is very low and services provided by the private sector are very costly, the role of the public sector in ensuring accessibility is very important. According to Planning Commission of India, in the private health sector, the outpatient services are 20 to 54% costlier, and inpatient services are 100 to 740 times costlier than public health care. Hence, the role of public sector is very critical in ensuring healthcare services delivery to all sections of the society. However, as compared to the high-income countries, the contribution of the governments in total expenditure on health is very low. This can be observed from table 1. The table shows that the low-income countries spend much less on health as compared to the middle-income as well as high-income countries. Even the government expenditure on health as percentage of total expenditure on health is also lower in the former as compared to the latter. What is more worrisome is the fact that while the total expenditure on health as percentage of GDP increased between 2000 and 2011, both in low as well as high income countries, but the government expenditure on health as percentage of total expenditure on health has declined in case of low income countries, while this has increased in high income countries. This is quite ironical as the governments of the low income countries are expected to spend more on public health because its residents have lower capacity to pay for the private health services. However, on the positive side, we can observe that the out-of-pocket expenditure on health services as compared to total private expenditure on health has declined. And the per capita expenditure by governments in purchasing power parity dollar terms has increased in low as well as high income countries. However, the absolute difference in per capita expenditure on health has widened between the low income and middle income countries, and has also in low income and high income countries. These trends automatically explain the reasons behind the less availability of health services in the low income countries as compared to the high income countries. Public transportation reduces air pollution and facilitates population mobility in densely populated urban areas, increasing access to employment, healthcare, or stores that sell fresh food and vegetables. All these factors influence the markets, physical and social environments, which again have effect upon health outcomes of the urban residents. This theoretical framework can be a guide to understand why health facilities provided by the governments in urban areas of developing economies fail to get the desired results. First of all, let us compare the antenatal services in both the rural and urban areas. It can be observed that for the antenatal care, more of the urban women rely on doctors, while a lesser proportion of them rely on nurses, midwives, or other types of health workers. The proportion of urban women relying on doctors for their antenatal care is 76.7% as compared to merely 40.6% for rural women. However, if we look at the distribution of the women receiving antenatal care by the wealth quintile, it can be observed that the proportion of the women under the care of a qualified doctor is very low for the lowest and second lowest quintile. And this is even lower as compared to the rural averages. The women belonging to these quintiles depend more on the midwives, nurses, and other types of health workers. About 86% of women from highest income group take doctor's advice for antenatal care, while only 23% of the lowest income group do so. In this table, the source of healthcare is categorized under three broad headings, namely the public medical sector, private medical sector, and other sources. We can see that the urban areas depend more upon the private medical sector as compared to the rural areas. While in case of public sector, the intra-sectoral differences are also visible in rural and urban areas. Whereas the urban residents mainly depend upon government hospital if they happen to get the treatment from the public sector, the rural residents depend more on community health center, rural hospital, or primary health center. Again, if we look at the source of the healthcare, according to the wealth quintile, we can see that the reliance on the public sector increases as income falls. But still, about 60% of the population belonging to the lowest quintile depend upon private sector medical care. This points towards a need for further probe into the quality of health services provided by the public sector. The table has indicated that 65.6% of total population in India is not using the public sector healthcare services. The National Family Health Survey 3 has shown that one of the important reasons behind it is the poor quality of services provided by the public sector. Apart from it, the distance of facility, inconvenience of the timings, absence of the health personnel, and too long waiting time are also the reasons behind availing the public sector health services. If we look at the figure 5, we can see that the median waiting time for getting the health services is about 21 minutes, both the rural and urban areas. However, it is notable that median waiting times double from 15 minutes to 30 minutes between the highest and lowest wealth status, and also between the public sector facility and the private sector facility. Thus, whole of this discussion shows that although the availability of urban health services is higher as compared to the rural ones, but the people belonging to the poorest wealth quintile are often marginalized and have to either depend upon the costly private services or compromise with the poor quality of the public sector services. Both situations are detrimental for the poor. The former eats into the major chunk of already scarce economic resources, while the latter means poor health outcomes which may further reduce their capacity to earn in the succeeding time periods. Therefore, it is being strongly felt that the quality of public health services should be improved by all means. The LDCs often lament about the budgetary constraints, but equally strong is the argument that the social cost of not providing the quality services is much higher than the benefits of saving the resources to be spent upon these services. Now, we will analyze the urban health systems. The urban health systems are supposed to be in advantageous position as compared to the rural health systems. A distinguishing feature of urban health systems is the prominence of the private sector. Given the higher average levels of income in urban populations and the income diversity that establishes market positions, private services tend to be more developed in cities than in rural areas, especially in the larger cities. Fee-for-service arrangements are generally characteristic of urban healthcare, and in this more modernized urban economy, the urban poor without cash on hand can find themselves unable to gain entry into the modern system of hospitals, clinics, and well-trained providers. Even though greater number of health services are available in the urban areas, but the quality of health infrastructure available to the poor is seriously under doubt. For analyzing the access and availability of urban health services, let us focus upon the latest data available on National Family Health Survey of India. The degree of quality is therefore the extent to which the care provided is expected to achieve the most favorable balance of risks and benefits. Thus, the quality is a comprehensive and multifaceted concept which has many dimensions such as technical competence, access to services, effectiveness, interpersonal relations, efficiency, continuity, safety, and other amenities. The formal framework of quality of health services as proposed by Brown and many others is shown in figure 6. Each of the dimensions shown in the figure has different importance for different types of services, contexts, and locations. However, these dimensions are undoubtedly useful to analyze the problems and the respective solutions for various health services. Therefore, for policy suggestions for improvements in health services, we may discuss here each of these dimensions. So first of all, let us discuss about technical competence. Technical competence refers to the skills, capability, the actual performance of the health providers, managers, and support staff. Technical competence relates to how well providers execute practice guidelines and standards in terms of dependability, accuracy, reliability, and consistency. This dimension is relevant for both clinical and non-clinical services. A lack of technical competence can range from minor deviations from standard procedures to major errors that decrease effectiveness or jeopardize patient safety. Access to services. Healthcare services are unrestricted by geographic, economic, social, cultural, organizational, or linguistic barriers. Geographic access may be measured by modes of transportation, distance, travel time, and any other physical barriers that could keep the client from receiving care. Economic access refers to the affordability of products and services for clients. Social or cultural access relates to service acceptability within the context of the client's cultural values, beliefs, and attitudes. Organizational access refers to the extent to which the services are conveniently organized for prospective clients and encompasses issues such as clinic hours and appointment systems, waiting time, and the modes of service delivery. Linguistic access means that the services are available in local language or a dialect in which the client is fluent. Effectiveness. The quality of health services largely depends upon the effectiveness, that is, whether the health services have been able to reach the desired results or not. This largely depends upon the choice of treatment for a certain ailment. For the health services to be effective, the norms and specifications of a certain line of treatment should be well defined, along with the risks associated with it. Interpersonal relations. The dimension of interpersonal relations refers to the interaction between providers and clients, managers and healthcare providers, and the health team and the community. Good interpersonal relations establish trust and credibility through demonstration of respect, confidentiality, courtesy, responsiveness, and empathy. Effective listening and communication are also important. Sound interpersonal relations contribute to effective health counseling and to a positive rapport with patients. Inadequate interpersonal relations can reduce the effectiveness of a technically competent health services. Patients who are poorly treated may be less likely to heed the healthcare provider's recommendations or may avoid seeking care. As the healthcare resources are usually limited, the efficient services should aim at optimal use of the available resources. Efficiency demands that necessary or appropriate care is provided. Poor care resulting from ineffective norms or incorrect delivery should be minimized or eliminated. In this way, quality can be improved while reducing the cost. Harmful care, besides causing unnecessary risk and patient discomfort, is often expensive and time-consuming. It would be misleading, however, to imply that quality improvements never require additional resources. But by analyzing efficiency, health programs managers may select the most cost-effective intervention. Continuity. Continuity means that the client receives the complete range of health services without interruption, cessation, or unnecessary repetition of diagnosis or treatment. Services may be offered on an ongoing basis. The client must have access to routine and preventive care provided by the health worker who knows his or her medical history. A client must also have access to timely referral for specialized services and to complete follow-up care. The absence of continuity can compromise effectiveness, decrease efficiency, and reduce the quality of interpersonal relations. Safety. As a dimension of quality, safety means minimizing the risks of injury, infection, harmful side effects, or other dangers related to service delivery. Safety involves the provider as well as the patient. Patients must be protected from infection, and health workers who handle blood and needles must be protected by safety procedures. Amenities. Amenities refer to features of health services that do not directly relate to clinical effectiveness, but may enhance the client satisfaction and willingness to return to the facility for subsequent healthcare needs. Amenities relate to physical appearance of the facilities, with the personnel and materials, as well as to comfort cleanliness, and the privacy. So we can now discuss about improvement in quality of urban health services. Actually, the quality of health services is in itself a subjective phenomenon, particularly in diverse structure of urban population. Quality of healthcare must be defined in light of the provider's technical standards and patient's expectations. While no single definition of health service quality applies in all situations, but we can say that the quality of technical care consists in the application of medical science and technology in a way that maximizes its benefits to health without correspondingly increasing its risks. So students, let us summarize what we have learned in this module. To sum up, it can be stated that the urban areas have better health services than the rural ones, but their access and affordability is restricted to the poorer sections of the urban society. Since the quality of health services provided by the public sector is too low, even the poor are not willing to avail these services, which may have an adverse impact on the health outcomes of the urban poor. Therefore, in order to optimize the welfare of its citizens, the government must try to improve the health services in the urban areas by improving its accessibility, effectiveness, and efficiency through enhancing the technical competence of the health staff by providing continuous and safe health services along with other amenities so that coming to a healthcare facility may not be adding to the woes of the patients. It should be pain relieving rather than pain enhancing. That's all with today's lecture. I hope you must have enjoyed this lecture. Thank you.